In San Diego today, voters have been choosing a new member of the California State Senate. Not the kind of election that would normally get national attention, except that this particular one has become another test on the question of abortion. In this particular instance, the relationship between church and state. In San Diego, ABC's Brian Rooney.
As a Democrat in Republican territory, Lucy Calais was almost certain to lose her race for the California State Senate until the Catholic Bishop of San Diego said she could no longer take communion because she favors abortion rights. A lot of voters came out on Lucy Calais' side today because they don't like the church trying to tell a politician what to do.
The church and state should be separate. Say I'm Catholic, but it still should be separate.
This is my statement that in voting for the pro-choice candidate, I'm saying that religion and politics should remain separate.
The bishop said the church couldn't just stand by while a Catholic politician openly disputed church doctrine.
In other words, you cannot be a politician and proclaim one thing and be a Catholic and proclaim another. You are a Catholic politician.
The church does not have to tell you, or at least as far as I'm concerned, doesn't have to tell me how to carry out my public position, that I have that worked out myself.
San Diego is not the only place where the Catholic Church is leaning on politicians. In Illinois, some people in the church wanted Cardinal Bernardin to ban State Attorney General Neil Hartigan from taking communion because he compromised on abortion. And in Rhode Island, the diocese newspaper is refusing to run Christmas greetings from local politicians unless they sign a letter calling for an end to abortion. Rhode Island's governor is opposed to abortion, but he thinks the church should stay out of politics.
When the church then starts telling me as a governor or any of the legislators that this is how we want you to formulate your conscience and act accordingly, they've overstepped their bounds.
By focusing on abortion, the church risks helping its opponents. Most people here in San Diego agree Lucy Calais wouldn't have had a chance if she wasn't opposed by the bishop. Brian Rooney, ABC News, San Diego.
Some business news today. The world's largest computer company is going to get a bit smaller. IBM said today it will cut 10,000 jobs. Some people won't be replaced when they leave. Others will be offered extra money to go early. IBM says the computer business is booming overseas but has been flat in the U.S. for several years. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrials lost nearly 10 points today, and the trading was moderate. In France today, a world speed record for a train. You have to look fairly quickly. 2 engines, 4 cars whizzing through the Loire Valley at 299.7 miles per hour, 300 miles per hour to most of us. There were no passengers on today's speed test. Regular high-speed service from Paris to the Atlantic coast will begin next year, but only at a mere 185 miles an hour. When we come back, the enormous problem of trying to bury the problem of nuclear waste once and for all. Tonight we put some of the fallout from the Cold War on the American agenda. Certainly Malta and the progress made at arms negotiations in general has raised the possibility of a dramatically reduced stockpile of nuclear weapons. And yet even if the arms race were to end tonight, there is the enormous problem of what to do with all the radioactive waste from weapons production that has piled up over more than 40 years. And the government's only facility for disposing of such until next year, if it opens at all. Here's ABC's Barry Serafin.
In the desert of southern New Mexico, about 100 miles from where the atomic bomb was born, the government has built a tomb in which to bury the waste from its bomb factories. It's called WIPP, the Waste Isolation Pilot Plant, an $800 million man-made hole half a mile underground. The Department of Energy has now, because of problems and pressures outside of New Mexico, time is running out. The waste produced at the Rocky Flats nuclear weapons plant near Denver has been stacked up temporarily in Colorado and Idaho. Now, Idaho won't accept anymore, and Rocky Flats may reach its storage limit. WIPP is supposed to be the answer to the nuclear waste problems piling up in states like Idaho and Colorado, but they boil down to one question: safely. A congressional watchdog says the record is not reassuring.
Regrettably, the situation at WIPP has been one, let's do it quickly, let's don't do it right. They've cut corners. They haven't met the deadlines that they've set for the patchwork.
This is how it is supposed to work. 9 miles of tunnel have been, including 7 big rooms, each as long as a football field. Those are the rooms where steel drums of waste, like these practice barrels, are to be stored. Then, according to the government's plan, pressure on the soft material that lines the tunnels, along with the natural growth of salt crystals, ceiling and floor, to gradually close in on and entomb the waste forever. Officials say there will not, and that their plan will work. Geophysicist Wendell Wirt.
If we can't do it here at WIPP, I seriously doubt if it can be done anywhere.
But there are nagging questions. Will gas generated by the waste produce cracks, allowing radioactivity to escape? Could water area be contaminated? The government says no. Critics say
it could get into drinking water, which is used for both irrigation and drinking water purposes.
They know about those concerns in Carlsbad, the closest community, but they also know that the facility means 600 jobs.
There's a city election come up in 4 months, and if I want to get beat, the first thing I need to do is oppose this project.
But anti-WIPP sentiment is strong in other parts of the state, even when it comes to a proposal by the Department of Energy to store a small amount of waste as an experiment.
The experimental program is a ruse to get waste in the ground so DOE can say, oh, look, we put some waste in the ground, let us put some more in the ground.
The most optimistic timetable for opening the complex, even on a test basis, is next July, but the problem won't wait. Proposed temporarily storing its radioactive waste above ground in 7 different states. The brothers and the 6 other governors was no.
As I've told the Department of Energy, poor planning on their part does not constitute an emergency on my part.
WIPP faces years of legal and environmental hurdles before it may be ready to open up for business. Until someone blinks in the standoff between the federal government and states, nuclear waste is a problem without a solution. Barry Seraphin, ABC News, Carlsbad, New Mexico.
Report in just a moment.
Tonight on Nightline with Ted Koppel, some 200 Americans remain trapped by rebels fighting Philippine government troops in Manila. The very latest from the Philippines on Nightline tonight.
Finally this evening, striking it rich. Sorry we can't tell you how. This is one answer to how some of those huge salaries in professional sports get to be so huge. Here's ABC's Dick Schaap.
John Koncak of the Atlanta Hawks is the highest paid player in pro basketball, per point. He earns more than $2 million a year, which comes to more than $5,000 for each of his infrequent points.
We've got some great scorers on the team, and I can assure you, every time I'm on the floor, I'm like the 5th option to every play.
Koncak's great fortune has little to do with his relatively limited skills. 4 months ago, the NBA champions, the Detroit Pistons, in need of a forward who could play defense, decided to bid for Koncak, who is 7 feet tall and who happened to be a free agent. Koncak decided to ask Detroit for $2 million for 1 season, more than twice the salary he earned last year in Atlanta. But before Koncak could ask, the Pistons offered.
The number was just outrageous, and we were just shocked. And when they sent the contract a few days later, you know, I hurriedly opened it up, and sure enough, it had $2.5 million.
The Pistons bid so high, partly to discourage Atlanta, which had the right to match the offer within 2 weeks.
We have a policy here that we're going to match no matter what the number is, and that's honestly how we felt.
Atlanta matched with a 6-year, $13.2 million package. Koncak accepted.
What was I supposed to do, say no? That's too much?
Let's keep in mind, this is a fluke. John's way overpaid by any standard you can use. I think he understands that too. He won the lottery. You know, he got very lucky. He was in the right place at the right time.
You would think other players, especially those with more talent and less income, would be jealous. On the contrary, teammates and opponents almost to a man cheer Koncak's contract.
I called him, and the first thing I said is, don't feel guilty. I mean, why feel guilty? If you hadn't signed that contract, then I would have been mad at you.
Koncak's family is delighted.
Who owns the Hawks?
No.
It just seems that way.
Say Ted Turner, honey.
Ted Turner.
Ted Turner owns the Hawks.
Dick Schaap, ABC News, Atlanta.
A slightly poorer Ted Turner. That's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News, where more Americans get their news than from any other source.